All right, I've got 6:30. Get started. I got a lot to go over tonight. We'll see if I get there. Uh, Roughly, the outline is I want to talk about the teams, some of the tools that I'm trying to get lined up, what might be due this week and coming up, a little bit of content, and that'll do it. I asked people to post their resumes and make a statement on the wiki. Most people did. If you haven't gone on there and look and see who else is in the class, specifically the online section. Some pretty impressive people out there taking this class. And as I said before, I'm going to let you form your own teams, but you might think about going out of your comfort zone and teaming up with one or two people online. The way we're going to do this, tomorrow I will have, how many of you have had team sign up in Blackboard before? Most of you have. Was it where you went and put your name on a team?
Yeah, choice.
And see that's called self-enroll. Now, I've never used that in a Blackboard class. I've got a testing shell in Blackboard, and I went in there and played with the self-enroll and the one where you assign and one that random. But anyway, the self-enroll, I'm trying to figure out how that works if, let's say, you've got a team formed already, and I open that thing up, and somebody puts their name in every one of the teams, then it's partially full, and you can't get your whole team in there. Has that ever happened to you?
I've seen it where it could have happened on Sandy.
Does everyone understand what I'm saying? The self-enroll, I'll say I want this many teams, so many people on a team, and when you go to the Blackboard shell, it'll say sign up for a team, and you pick one. But there may already be folks that got there before you did. So I don't know how it's going to work. I'm going to turn it on tomorrow, probably around midday. So I don't think you have to scurry to be the first one in there or anything like that. If it doesn't work out well, we can redo it, or I can burn it down. We can do something different. But I'd like to try it and see. All right. So teams should be formed tomorrow and in the next few days. I've decided to make it a little bit easier on you and me. I'm going to make 6 teams of 5 because we have 30 people. I think having one more resource on your team may be helpful. May make it more complex, but there'll be 6 teams that you can put your name on. Okay. Any other questions or thoughts on that? If you've been in a class or two that's done it, can you give me some advice or something? I know that I have the rights to move people around after the teams are formed. So if you wanted to be on team 3 and it got full before you could get on there, I suppose I can make changes to it. Again, this is my virgin tour through this, but it looks like a pretty nice feature. So, no comments? Love it. And then what I saw in my test shell was that each team will have its own set of Blackboard tools. You'll have your own wiki, your own instant messenger, I think Collaborate, Access, that kind of thing. So it doesn't matter whether you're physically, in the traditional face-to-face section or online. Let's talk about tools. What do I mean by tools?
Like a Blackboard sheet.
Well, there's tools in Blackboard. hopefully you'll have access to all of those. I don't mean to limit anyone. If there's any tool in Blackboard that you don't have access to, I want to make it available to you. That's the wiki boards, I think emails internal to your team or your group. Blackboard calls them groups. I think there's an IM. I think there's Collaborate, which means you can basically pull up and share your screen and show other people your work. Any of that stuff. So there's Blackboard tools, but then there's other tools you're going to need, right? Maybe some of you have them. Maybe most of you probably don't. What tools do I mean? Most of it being software. I'm going to mandate that I've got a verbal. I think it just needs to go through Carlos. Carlos Sterling, our IT guy. But I've got 30 licenses of Synchro Scheduler. Back when we did the competition team, it was free. I just downloaded it and started using it. Now they're charging for it. So I think Carlos just has to give you I don't know if it's a web link and a code or just a code. We'll get that straight, and hopefully you can start looking at that tool this week. Okay.
Will that be available for Mac?
That's a really good question. The question is, will it be available for Macintosh? Unless you can run virtual machine, I would doubt it. A lot of these tools aren't Mac friendly. Even though I've seen what we saw on the team, didn't we? That you can run it in the virtual Windows mode, and it'll still kind of do some strange things. I'm not saying it won't work. But if you Google Synchro, look at the scheduler application, and I don't remember seeing a Mac version, but they may have one.
That boot camp worked pretty good on Jason's computer with all those things.
Oh, okay, so that's a virtual machine that runs Windows on Mac.
Yeah.
What other tools might you need? And if that's all you want, we're good to go. Got the Blackboard tools, Synchro, cool. Estimating software. Hard Dollar's available if people want to use it. I think the learning curve on it's going to be so steep that you may look at it and not want to play. That's the only one I know of that the online students can utilize also.
Can they put it on our computers?
Everything I'm talking about means it's going to run on your PC. Yeah.
Could you use Excel if you already have a spreadsheet before?
You can use Excel. I'm not limiting you. The only tool I'm requiring is going to be Synchro. I do want the schedule done in Synchro, that's it. And the reason I'm doing that is a lot of you got time on Microsoft Project. I think Project's okay to learn the basics of scheduling, but it's not a very good tool for construction scheduling in the real world. A lot of contractors use it, don't get me wrong. And you can customize it to do a lot of great things. So I don't want to knock Project too much, but there are problems with it. One is there are finite, and I don't know what the number is. I used to know, but I'm losing brain cells more than I'm gaining at this age. But there's a limited number of activities you can create. So people that do very large projects don't even mess with it. And I don't mean 20 million or something, I'm talking 200 million. The industry standard is what for scheduling? What's the industry standard for scheduling said it. Primavera. Primavera P6. I think we have it on the construction server in the labs. I believe it's there if you want to play with it. If you want to use it. The only problem is you've got to be in a lab computer to use it. I would let you use P6 if you want. One reason we don't is it's the industry standard, but I've never met an industry person that uses it that likes it. And I won't go too far into all this. But anyway.
How you feel about RS Means online?
It might speed up some of the things you're doing. Yeah.
I was checking, I have a subscription from last year. It was,
What's it?
$40.
$40?
Yeah, $40 for the student version and
$40 for a student version of RS Means Online. Okay.
I know on there like you don't have it. You can have it set where it's laid out in master format, and then like you can go down. And
Does it export anything?
Yeah, you can export it to Excel. I actually have one. On my
Into
laptop.
Excel?
Yeah, I actually have one on my laptop. It'll like basically the students go on there, be laid out in master format, and then you click on something like say it's footings or like concrete or something. You click on it, and you click add the estimate at the bottom, and then like it already have what units quantified in. So say it's like cubic yards, so you just figure out cubic yards for your job, and then punch in whatever that data is, and then it'll automatically calculate like material, labor, and then the total with overhead and profit.
Okay.
And you just export
So
it.
RS Means Online, student version, $40. It has the database behind it, right? It's not a bad deal. The hard dollar version that we can offer also has the RS Means database built into it. Now, Ross, you put together the competition estimate with hard dollar. Anything you want to tell people before they put their toe in the hard dollar water?
It's got a learning curve to it. You have
Like,
to-
how long was your curve?
How long did it take?
Took you a couple of weeks, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to give you time, but you don't want to waste away time in this thing. We'll talk more about that later, but once the teams get formed, I've given you clear directions. You want to tear it up, I'll revisit that. But let's talk about tools a little bit more before I get into that. Wonder where he went. So at this time, I don't have any other software licenses to offer where you can download the application and license it for use from your personal PC. A lot of them just want to give us licenses for the servers, you know, the lab PCs, and that doesn't help the online folks. And we've got to keep all the rules the same. But I don't care what tools you use, with the exception of Syncro. And if you want to use P6, I'll let you do that too. But no project, as long as we have Syncro. Okay. The big one that I haven't worked out, the contract documents that I have are from student competitions. They're pretty good jobs, and I know they're in PDF form, right? So you're going to have to navigate PDF drawings. I know that's somewhat a pain in the rear, but I have to do it too. And there's a learning curve on that. You can get pretty good with it, I think. But these are locked down to where the measuring tools don't work within the Adobe Reader. What does that mean? Did you know Adobe Reader had measuring tools? So if you put a construction drawing into PDF, you know, the reason for PDF is several fold. It's so that you can control copying, cut and paste. There's a lot of digital rights management options when you create a PDF. Most of us are just used to, we're in Microsoft Office and say print to a PDF or save it as a PDF, and you don't ever go in and look at your preferences. These PDF drawings you can't cut and paste from, and you can't print. So one of the things that you can do when you create a PDF of a construction drawing is say enable the measuring tools. And if you click that option when you save the PDF, then you can open it in Adobe Reader and you can measure areas, lengths, distances with tools that are just built into Adobe Reader. Now we're not dealing, I'm not giving you 3D models, but Adobe Reader 10, it was either 9 or 10, 3 or 4 years ago, was created exclusively for 3D models. So you can open up a 3D model in a PDF, move it around, look at it, chop it up, hopefully you know, print 2D stuff out the way you want, that kind of thing. So I'm trying to find a solution to that. On-screen takeoff is probably the most popular software that allows you to open a PDF and use those same measurement tools, probably better measurement tools than the reader has. And I'm trying to get that. I talked with them briefly today, and I have to talk to someone else. I tried I²Foot. They have an on-screen takeoff, but I couldn't work out anything with them. If anyone knows anything else, I'm all ears. I'll be glad to call any company and try to get educational licenses. PlanSwift? Do they have a trial, do you know?
Say free 14-day trial, right?
Let's see. Wow, okay, thank you. Any other ones? Anyone knows about it? You pulled me out of a hole here.
Free 14-day trial.
I see that. 30 would be a lot better, but 14 is better than nothing.
Probably just gotta enter your email address.
As long as you take it off for 14 days, you're good.
As long as you pay.
I'll call them also and see. I'll call them also and see if they have any kind of educational program. But thank you, Alex.
Timberline? What is Timberline? Is that takeoff software?
Yeah, Timberline was one of the first estimating software applications for construction. When I first came here in '03, David Marchman was teaching the estimating classes, and it was kind of, at that point in '03, Excel spreadsheets had the majority of the user market in construction estimating. Timberline would have been probably second. They also came out with a really pretty good accounting software package for construction. But anyway, what happened with Timberline was that it came out in around 2000, or it was there in the late 90s, and into the twos, they didn't upgrade their code or anything like that. When you saved a file, it saved it in a folder with about 15 different files. Try emailing that to somebody. I want to save my file, email it to the main office. Okay. And I'm sure they probably had archived things eventually, but it was just old code. WinEst, W-I-N-E-S-T came out. It navigated virtually the same. I compared them both, back in 03, 04. And I thought WinEstimator had the same functionality. It was cleaner code. It was newer, smaller footprint. You could, on your PC, you could save the file, save the estimate as a single file, and all that kind of stuff. And they had built-in takeoff software in those. I was at the Hard Dollar site today, and they integrate with OnScreen also. But anyway, okay, PlanSwift, that's great. So you were gone, and those ABC docs are locked down. You can't use the Adobe Reader measuring tools. So if you want to do on-screen takeoff, it's got to be with one of these. Either on-screen takeoff itself, which I don't have licenses. I may be close to having licenses, but I don't have them yet. I don't have it nailed down. So this PlanSwift is a good thing. If anybody in the online section can help us out with some other alternatives, that would be great. If you don't use one of these tools, why is it so important to use one of these takeoff tools? Well, why is it faster?
Because you ain't got to sit there and write down and look at every measurement. You can just click.
Yeah, otherwise you're reading the measurements on the drawings and putting them in a spreadsheet to do the measurement, which is probably more accurate than the on-screen, but it's definitely more laborious. And that would depend whether you're a good typist and if you can convert to decimal feet and all that kind of stuff. All right, so a little bit about those tools. The other issue that I don't have resolved is RFIs, requests for information, and I would think in other future semesters of this class, try to find a decent RFI software, because I don't think our students are exposed to that very well. And it could very well be your first job out of here. They'll throw you in a job trailer or in the main office and assign you to a project that is either bidding or they have under contract and it's being bought out. And if you don't know what an RFI is, it's a request for information, and it's just a lot of back and forth about clarifications of the drawings and the contract documents, and there's so much of it that you've got to organize it and know what's answered, what's not answered, what it belongs to, what part of the project, what division, and it's very, very laborious to do it in a spreadsheet. But getting back to the class, people are going to have questions about these projects, and I don't want to frustrate you or kill myself. I got more email coming at me than I want, as it is, and I don't think we want to use the wikis. The wikis and Blackboard are not the answer, if you ask me. They're good for some things, like posting your resume and that kind of thing, but anyway, RFI, we'll be talking about RFIs and how we're going to handle that. So I just wanted to tell you where I was on the tool side of things. Questions on that? Have you ever used it, PlanSwift?
Pretty good.
So does it work pretty good?
It's pretty similar to all screen.
All right.
Just a little bit different.
Well, I'll call them and see if I can get longer. 30 would be great, but 14 is better than 2 weeks just going by dimension lines. As I said, I'll have the team sign-up thing up. We'll kind of know where we're at on that on Thursday. I'm going to give people some time to communicate together. Not a whole lot of time, but more than half a week. The first thing I'll want is for your team to give me a responsibility assignment matrix. That'll be the first deliverable to me. And then you'll need to be thinking, you'll need to create your organization. And I'll put these contract documents up this week. So you can start looking at those at your leisure, you get familiar with it. I don't have to do anything. I'm not going to have, the estimate's not going to be due in 2 weeks. But you're going to have to form these teams, look at your contract documents, and figure out who's going to do what. That's the responsibility assignment matrix. And you're going to have to plan, you're going to have to schedule and plan your creation of the schedule and the plan. Does that make sense? Speaking of tools, I did find on the aacei.org website, this is where the total cost management thing comes from and the recommended practices. But if you go to their site, this is the opening page, and if you go to these professional resources and to cost models, there's a couple things there that you don't have to log in for. You don't have to create an account. There's this parametric cost estimating model for buildings, and you're going to have building. The project is buildings. What's a parametric cost estimation? What is that? Why would I show you this?
Is it like you have square foot prices of the building according to what it is?
I don't spend a lot of time on it, but if I click it, it's got a description about what it does, what it wants. It's got to have some input, and it uses factoring and multipliers and some things. And I noticed down at the bottom it says to try the cost model, click here, and you can see it wants some input. So if you tell it approximately how many square feet, how many floors, how much of it's air conditioned, how much of it's office space, things of that nature. Remember, these are approximations and parameters. Then you can calculate. Yeah, I didn't fill in everything, but it'll give you some hypothetical numbers. Why would I show you that?
See if you're in the workflows.
Yeah, it doesn't mean it's right. It doesn't mean it's going to line up with RSMeans, but you might be able to find out quickly what the approximate price, all right, let's use the right words, price, not cost. Well, it says cost, so you'll have to read whether that includes any markups or not. Since it says cost, I'm going to use the word cost. So it'll give you an approximate cost of the facility that I'm going to give you. Why would you want to know that? To check your estimate, but in the real world, why would you want something like that? What?
Make sure you ain't leaving the mud on each other.
So you know bond capacity?
What?
So you know your bond capacity?
That's the answer I was looking for. Typically, you need a bid bond, and so you don't want to wait until you're finished with the estimate to tell your bonding agent that you need a bid bond. And the sooner you can give him an idea, the sooner he'll tell you whether he's going to give you one or not. Why would he not give you one?
You ain't got the bonding capacity to do so. We'll look at it.
That's right. You may have exceeded your bonding capacity, the aggregate amount, number one. You're going to create a hypothetical company, and you're also going to give it some rough financial parameters. But insurance people, risk people look at that and they say, oh, based upon the last 3 years of the financial statements of this organization, this is how much risk we want to take on them. Okay? So, you know, they've never done more than $15 million in a year. You're not going to get a $100 million bonding capacity. You're going to get something that they feel you can handle and not be overextended. And so that's the aggregate. There's only so much contract value that you can have going on at one time. Okay, that's the aggregate amount. So your bonding limit would be all of the contract amounts added together for your firm, less what you billed for. That'd be the aggregate. And there's a form that you give them. Every time you want a bid bond, you fill out, and the name of it eludes me right now. I'll think of it in about 10 minutes. But it's basically their form. You list your projects, what's the contract amount, how much have you billed, are you overbilled or underbilled, are there change orders, how much are those? So there's really a lot of communication when you're in the home office, especially in an estimating functional area. You do a lot of communication with your bonding agent. And then obviously there's a per project bonding limit. If you're used to doing $5 million jobs, you ask your bonding agent, hey, I really want to do this $25 million job. You're going to have to, buy them a lot of lunches before that's going to happen. So it's really based upon your financial history. But it's also, they take things into consideration like what are the credentials and the experience of the people in the home office and the project staff and the whole 9 yards. So anyway, that's a tool if you want it. The second one's probably a little more interesting for where we're at right now, and that is an estimate schedule calculator. And what it does, you can go in there. If you have a rough idea of the project, you tell it how many estimators or schedulers that you have, and the team should have done this. It'll tell you how long it's going to take to create the estimate or the schedule. So this is for teams trying to figure out how to schedule your time, your amount of effort per person, so that you can meet the deliverable dates that I haven't given you yet. Does that make sense? So it's just a spreadsheet. Play around with it. It looks pretty good. It gives you a range. I would definitely look at that. Again, that's a free tool you can use. Your team can use it to try to estimate the amount of time it's going to take to assemble the estimate and the schedule. So I think that's probably pretty good on tools. One thing it will ask you on here, if you want to use this tool, is what class of estimate are you using? So most of you probably wouldn't know how to, may not know how to answer that. And this is something I don't think it's too early to pull this recommended practice in. This is 17R37, I believe. 17R97, cost estimate classification system. You can see it belongs to TCM framework section 7.3, which is estimating and budgeting. But we're going to go ahead and look at it quickly here. And they have a table here. It starts with class 5, and it goes down to class 1. This is how any estimate can be classified, and it's based upon the maturity of the design. Okay. So a class 5 estimate has 0 to 2% definition. What would be an example of something like that?
Design build.
Well, eventually this course will be design build. We talked about that the other night, but we're not going to do that. But what does it mean 0 to 2%
Wouldn't that just be like?
level of project definition? Go ahead, Andrew.
Wouldn't that just be the initial idea of the project?
Yes.
that it wants?
So an architect or an engineer is sitting in a restaurant with an owner or a potential investor who wants to build condos in Destin, Florida, and you sketch something on a napkin. That's 0 to 2%. You can actually come up with some costs that way, using tools like I just showed you, and there's lots of other things. Right? But that's not what we're going to do. And you can see as it progresses down this way, you know, class 3 would have 10% to 40%. It's only designed more than 10, less than 40. So, you know, when you're in design build, the contractor is helping the designer flush out the final deliverable, which is the project. If you think in terms of a building, that's fine. But you're going to go through all the iterations if you're in the design build delivery model and you're in estimating. You're going to have a class 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, or at least a 5, a 3, a 2, and a 1. So as the design gets more flushed out, your estimate can be more precise, right? So it's directly proportional to the maturity of the design. Does that make sense? The less mature the design, the less accurate you could expect the estimate to be. Okay. What class of estimate are we going to prepare? It's going to be a class 1. We expect what I give you to be 100% design. And to be honest with you, that's a whole different skill set. Class 1 estimates don't have a lot to do with class 5s. There are people that are experts at 5s and 4s, and there are people that are experts at 1s. I spent my whole career doing 1s. There's people that spend their whole career up there, and it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. I've seen like some of the AACE people I know. They have class 4 estimates. We're talking about like refineries, for instance, some kind of oil and gas facility. A lot of the people in that organization are in the oil and gas industry, and they'll take a 200 million refinery that's designed 5%, and they'll get within 1 or 2% of what it actually goes for. It blows my mind. It's amazing. So anyway, So I'm throwing out 17R-97. I'd like for you to read through that. I'm making you responsible for it now. I don't know how many pages it is. It says it's 8 pages on my PDF reader, but it just describes that table. That's what it does. You know, first column is the class estimate. What level, how mature is the design? What do you typically use the estimate for? What is the methodology? What's the accuracy range? And then, you know, preparation effort. Obviously, the class 1 takes much more effort. But some projects go through all the classes. Again, if you're in a design build, you'll probably go through all those iterations. Okay. Also want you to read a section of the TCM. And I'm going to conduct my lectures kind of in this order here. So starting with 7.1, there's a broad process map there that we can talk about just for a minute. But it mirrors what I'm telling you and what you're going to end up doing. You're going to have to plan for getting this work done. You're going to have to plan for the planning. Okay. And I think you guys on the team could probably attest to maybe a little elbow grease spent in that part could pay off a lot downstream. I don't know. But this is where you decide who's going to do what, how long it's going to take you. Give yourself a little buffer zone so that you can meet the deliverables in here. And, you know, with a team of people, that's really not a small task. And then it shows the next thing you're going to do is what? Break down scope. Decomposition. What does that mean? What is a scope of work? What does scope of work mean? What do you?
Scope of work is what you have to do to get the project done. The overall, your overall scope. Something how to break it down.
Let's see what. That's a good answer. I've got 10S90 to the rescue. Control F. I bet there's scope in a lot of definitions. How about I just go down to the S's? That's the definition that I care about. In contracting and procurement includes all that an enterprise is contractually committed to perform or deliver. So you've got to know what the scope is, and your job as a construction manager in the planning portion, estimates are plans, schedules before the job starts are plans. All right? Put them together. You have a work plan. Okay. And then you execute that work plan and always assess if you're within the plan And the project manager's job is, sometimes you have to change the plan. But the scope is a big deal. And you have to communicate to other people in your company, your subcontractors, your vendors, people internal and external to your company. You've got to explain the scope to them. And one of the best ways of doing that is a work breakdown structure. So if you look that up in 10S90, what are the components of a work breakdown structure or a WBS? Tasks is another name for tasks. Activities. We'll go over this later, but you start listing, you look at the drawings and the specs, and you break the project down into pieces that you can get your mind around. You give it a description. And that's the first thing I would do if I were you all. Is break this down into all its component parts to where this entire list is the scope. So if you want to communicate that scope to a superintendent, here it is. If it's not on here, don't do it. I would do this first. Then what's the next thing you're going to do after you have this list?
Gracie matrix.
I would do the matrix first before this. Go ahead. I would do that before this.
So break down the task.
That's what these are. Sometimes these are called, sometimes these activities are the components, all right? And sometimes you have groups of activities, like you might have concrete flat work. And maybe subordinate to that would be sidewalk, driveways. Maybe there's a Portland cement concrete driveway, right? And you can group these together in what's called work packages. So I'm making you responsible for that word also. So I'm going to give you like 3 or 4 glossary terms every week. You can look them up in 10S90, and I'll probably quiz you on them. I will quiz you on them. All right, but work package is combining some activities that belong together. Division, like if you think of divisions in CSI, that's too broad. But CSI, you can keep drilling down into the CSI framework to get to work packages. That's why the coding is the way it is. Make sense? You should know that by now. I'll put this over here. These are work packages. In fact, the TCM framework in 7.1 tries to, it's got a little diagram. So it's kind of where the work breakdown structure and the responsibility intersect. I don't know if that's helpful or not. You'll get it after you do it. But the way I like, my philosophy on this is once you do this, the next thing you have to do, this is not a complete scope, even if you have everything listed, because there's no quantities on here, right? So I can put sidewalk as an activity, all right? Construct the sidewalk. But if you don't know how much, then you don't have a complete scope. You might do too much, you might do too little. So you got to have a quantity on here. And historically, you know, in a unit of measure, So if this is sidewalk, so many square feet or square yards. You do it in cubic yards if you wanted, cubic feet, doesn't matter. But until you get a quantity, you really don't have a scope. So your team is going to need to do this breakdown and then get everyone working on the takeoff. And historically, my experience with the competition teams is that's what people struggle with the most. So maybe our estimating class isn't rigorous enough, I don't know. Even if it was, it's something that you don't get real good at unless you do it. But there's 5 people to a team, so I would come up with a systematic way of delegating the work amongst you. And then once you have this, then you can go 2 directions, but everyone should concentrate, in my opinion, you can do it however you want, as long as you meet the deliverable date. What can I do with the work breakdown structure, quantities, and unit of measure?
Start allocating resources.
Well, you could do a schedule, right? You can't build a schedule, a CTM schedule, without a work breakdown structure. You've got to have activities, and you order them with a logic. You can build the cost in, you can load it with resources, which you're going to do. So you can use it for the schedule, and you can also estimate with the WBS. So I'm just guessing, I don't know how things will go, but I would get everyone getting this taken care of, the breakdown, the quantification, then then you can have specialists on your team or divide people up and get to work right away on the schedule and the estimate simultaneously. Unfortunately, a lot of contractors do the estimate. Their list of their scope, some of the things are activities, some of the things are really just resources, like materials. And they'll do an estimate with it, and then somebody will have to create all of it again in the schedule. And it's probably less so now than it used to be, but you can use the work breakdown structure for both things, schedule and estimate. And there's a lot of argument that this comes first. In fact, in the TCM, it actually does come first. So 7.1 is your strategy on how you're going to do all the other sections. The very next one is schedule, planning, and development. And you can see the process flow chart there. Identify activities, that's your WBS. Develop activity logic, that's how you order. Decide the order of the activities and the relationships that they have between each other. And an algorithm does a forward and backward pass, and you get critical path, right? Critical path is the shortest path through the schedule, correct? Wrong, it's the longest path through the schedule. So if you delay the longest path, it's going to delay the whole job. And hopefully you have a float and that kind of thing. And a lot of people now are doing the schedules first because you've got to figure out the durations of these activities. How do you figure out the durations of the activities? And we have recommended practices on all this stuff. Look through there. But without a quantity, you can't figure a duration, because how do you figure the duration of an activity?
Lifetime's production rates.
Yeah, you got to know based upon the resources that you're going to utilize to complete that activity, They might be able to do so many square feet of sidewalk an hour or a day. That's how you come up with a duration. And you need that for this and this, because the estimate's about time on each activity. Because you're paying people by the hour and you're spending money on equipment by the hour. So that's kind of the way I would get rolling on that. Were there any questions on the previous recommended practice, which was this one? I think it's pretty straightforward, but if we have some later, that's fine. So I think what I'll do, I think I've done this, I did it the first week, but most weeks we'll have a weekly quiz. I'll open it on Friday and end it Sunday night. So there'll be one this Friday. And the scope of the quiz will be this RP 17R97, TCM 7.1, and glossary terms. Multiple choice, true, false.
3 or 13 glossary terms.
I'll put this up on the, I haven't opened up a folder this week, if you've looked. It's there just waiting to be opened. But I'll have the team sign up stuff there. And I'll have all this there for you. Hopefully this will render. And if you want to watch this lecture again. I'll probably ask for the responsibility matrix in a week. Pretty soon after that, the breakdown structure for your team and your company. But once we get a team going and you kind of get to know everybody, you know what your tools are, I'll see if I can, my action item, one of them is to see if I can get PlanSwift or online takeoff for more than 14 days. But I'm relieved that there's at least a 14-day trial. So, and actually that's a good duration just to get all the takeoff knocked out. Do it in 2 weeks. Your estimating software funk out is your motivator. Try that with the competition team next time. I'm not smart. I don't want smart settings. I don't have a whole lot more. Does that